So today I am very excited to introduce Justine Williams, who is a multi-award winner clinical hypnotherapist.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to have you here. This is such an interesting topic and I can't wait to chat. But before we get into it, I would love you to explain to me the difference between a clinical hypnotherapist and a hypnotherapist.
So the difference between clinical hypnotherapy and hypnotherapy is a clinical hypnotherapist will have extensive training. They'll be government accredited. They'll have done approved courses, but importantly, they'll be part of an association where they undergo monthly supervision. So they've got that continued training, and they have to do a certain amount of courses every single year. Generally, a clinical hypnotherapist will also have health fund status. So you can actually claim seeing a clinical hypnotherapist on your health fund.
Amazing.
If that's what the health fund offers. A hypnotherapist can basically be anyone. So you could actually hang a shingle on, your office front and say, I'm a hypnotherapist. You don't need any particular training because it's unregulated. And the same with counsellors. Yeah. So in Australia, there is no regulations on counsellors and hypnotherapists. So anyone can do it.
So basically, now if you're going to go and see anybody, look at what their certificates are, the qualifications.
Look at the qualifications because it shows dedication to the craft and to the people that are coming in. It means extensive training, but particularly you want someone that has that monthly supervision. So there's accountability as well and deep learning.
Wow, amazing. Thank you. Now, hypnotherapy to me, and I'm sorry because I am a total layman in this, so forgive my ignorance, but I remember growing up in the UK, there was a really famous person called Paul McKenna, and he was this hypnotherapist, and I think he had a show and he used to get people on and hypnotize them and get them to do crazy things, and it was like a family entertaining show. Is that what you do, or is it different?
Totally different. Do you know what? Everyone asked me that, and I remember leaving the corporate world to go and study clinical hypnotherapy, and everyone was like, are you insane? You're going to be turning people into clucking chickens.
Exactly. That's what I remember, the clucking chickens and doing really embarrassing things.
Absolutely. So no, that's very much down a different end. Clinical hypnotherapy and what I do is very much about mental and emotional health and helping you reframe negative thoughts to positive thoughts and helping overcome old, patterns and quite often trauma. Yeah. And whereas stage hypnosis, I mean, wouldn't it be fantastic if we could all just with the click of a finger say one particular word and turn certain people into clucking chickens? I mean,
it would be fun.
That would be naughty and fun. But no, I wouldn't even know how to do that. But from what I understand, those stage hypnotists, that's probably a better way of describing them. They're a hypnotist. Yeah. Go around the audience before the show begins and has a conversation with people and discovers who are highly suggestible and who actually really want to do it.
Right.
And so I wouldn't even know how to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I'm glad. My husband was like, can you see if you can get hypnotized? I'm like, no, I don't want to be a clucking chicken.
Yeah. So everyone is hypnotizable. And in fact, we've all been in trance so many times in our life.
Yeah.
Have you ever driven from A to B and thought, how did I even get here? I wasn't even focused.
Yeah.
That's a state of trance. So you were fully aware of what was happening. You could stop at the red traffic lights. You could go on green. You stayed within your lanes. You were just focused in a very relaxed way. But if a dog or a child had jumped out in front of you, in front of the car, you'd be able to slam on your brakes.
Yeah, right.
So it's actually a very hyper-focused way of feeling, but in a relaxed state. But you still know everything that's going on for you. You don't go under anything. You're not under anyone's control. You're just moving through to a beautiful state of relaxation.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
So when I know you've got an awful lot of clients. I know that in the Northern Beaches in Sydney, you are the person to go to and who's recommended all the time. So you see a lot of clients, particularly women, I know. What is the area that you help most women who come and see you in?
Anxiety. And anxiety can cover so many different things.
Yeah.
So feelings of panic attacks, anxiety where, you might be getting mad at the kids and you're not happy about that. Guilt, drinking too much. Anxiety covers such a broad range, and it's how we respond to that anxiety that really makes us unhappy as well.
Yeah, I was chatting to our psychotherapist on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and she was saying, I think the stats were 1 in 5 women have anxiety, which is such a high amount, and it's much higher than men. So there's so much help we need in this area, right? It's a big topic.
It is indeed.
And when you see clients and you do clinical hypnotherapy with them, how does it work? Tell me about the science or the logistics around how that works and how you help someone who is suffering from anxiety, whichever form it is, overcome that.
Yeah, that's a very big question.
That's a big one.
And it really depends on each individual because each session needs to be bespoke to that person's needs, and we need to set up mental and emotional safety frameworks. So what I would do is, go through the history of the person from when, as far back as they can remember to now. I would look at and discuss with them what were the challenges that they were experiencing now. Very, very, so just to tell you this, in a very quick sense, I would develop a couple of lists. So I would ask them what it is that they don't want to feel, do, or be in the negative anymore. What it is they want to feel, do, and be in the positive. That can actually, believe it or not, be very hard for them to articulate. And then what are the qualities they most like or love about themselves? That is the hardest one of all for people to come up with, which is really quite striking.
Yeah.
And then from those lists, I'll develop a very specific protocol to help them get underneath. So underneath those feelings and habits and beliefs. When we're talking in that sense, people are talking to me in their conscious mind. But underneath, in the unconscious mind, is a whole other range of feelings. And so what I'll likely do is do regression, otherwise known as analytical hypnotherapy, to try and find the root cause. So the best way to describe it is if you can imagine a beautiful tree and one of the limbs on the tree is rotting or distorted. Now, that can be representative of a phobia, panic attacks, drinking too much, getting angry at the kids, lots of different types of feelings. Now, we can cut that off at the trunk of the tree, but it'll still probably keep growing back. Yeah. So what clinical hypnotherapy aims to do is just gently push that tree over and try and find the roots that are associated with that limb. And if we can try and maneuver those roots or cut those roots out and replace them. And this is the key, whatever you take away, you need to replace with your dreams, your hopes, your aspirations. And if you're unsure of those, the feelings that you would rather feel in life.
Wow.
And then you bring that tree back up and you pat it down and you give it lots of nurture and nourishment with more hypnotherapy, and then hopefully from there it flourishes.
And all of that is from talking to the subconscious.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely fascinating.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. And what's the level of success? Because, there's so many people have got so many issues, right? Like everyone's got issues of some sort.
Absolutely.
Some have got more, some have got less. What's the level of success from talking to the subconscious through clinical hypnotherapy?
Well, that's a really interesting question, and it's very much determined on that person and how they're feeling moving forward from after their treatment.
Do you, when you're seeing people or not just you, but obviously other clinical hypnotherapists, do you find a lot of people will come back and say, yes, that worked, my life's different now?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I hear from so many different people that their life has changed.
Yeah.
They'll quite often say that I've changed their life. Actually, no, it's not me that's changed their life. I've just held the torchlight for them as we've wandered through to try and find a resolution to the challenges.
Yeah.
They're the ones that have changed their life because they're the ones that have had the courage to go forward and go deep in the unconscious and pull out those roots.
And with the going deep in the unconscious, is that person conscious of that going in the unconscious?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, brilliant question. Absolutely. there are so many different styles of hypnotherapy, and some people can go so deeply relaxed and they can just wander off in their mind and come back. Generally, most people think they've been gone for about 5 minutes in a state of relaxation, but it could be more like half an hour, 40 minutes. So they lose track of time because they're just so profoundly relaxed. When we're doing that deep therapeutic work to find the root causes, it's a little bit different, and people are fully aware. And I add a little bit of relaxation at the end to that.
Yeah, wow. It's just so fascinating. And are you finding that hypnotherapy or clinical hypnotherapy is more common now than it used to be?
It is growing rapidly.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the growth of it globally. I believe that in France they have clinical hypnotherapists there in the hospitals.
Wow.
And it's huge in America. Yeah. Australia is now starting to catch on to that.
And if someone's listening to this and thinks, I can't get, or there's no clinical hypnotherapist nearby me, or I can't get to one, is there anything we can do on our own to try and unlock that subconscious, or do you need someone to help you do that?
Well, it really depends on what the challenges are. So you can listen to recordings by a trusted clinical hypnotherapist. Otherwise, you can definitely seek out a clinical hypnotherapist and do Zoom sessions if you're looking for that one-to-one therapy. I think it's best to be guided by someone if there are particular challenges that you want addressed and you just can't seem to move past them.
Yeah. And it's always one-on-one. Do you ever do group sessions, or is it just always because it's so personal, I guess?
When it comes to really trying to heal your own, challenges, definitely one-on-one. I think it needs to be bespoke, just like any form of therapy. There are lots, you can attend retreats. I've done over 80 retreats.
Yeah, wow, unbelievable.
And so in those beautiful groups, and that would be more, the content of the hypnotherapy would be more generic. Yeah. Certainly in hypnosis, I'm offering seeds, to plant. And what's interesting is you can't take on anything that's not aligned to your values. Yeah. So in a group context, if you're in trance and you're in experience that relaxation, and say that the topic is for confidence, you'll only take on from what that hypnotherapist is saying if that's right for you. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Absolutely fascinating. And talk to me about the neural pathways, because that's, I think, so interesting. And I think you mentioned before we started today that, is it kids have about 1 million neural pathways created every day?
Every second.
Every second. Oh, my God.
So according to, and this is great that the government have done this, there's the Australian government draft survey for children's wellbeing. Yeah. 2024 to 2034, where they've stated that children develop over 1 million neural connections every single second. Oh my goodness. And so with neural pathways and neural connections, and we're still developing them, as we get older, but it just slows down. So there are generally 3. There's the muscular neural pathways, there's the sensory neural pathways, and then there's another set of neural pathways where it's a combination and of different connections. And so we've got I guess the best way to look at neural pathways is, I call them superhighways. Mm-hmm. So if you imagine a freeway or a superhighway in your brain, and it's how information travels from one part of the brain to the next. And this is what carries our habits, our thoughts, our beliefs, our sensory experiences, and how our muscles respond.
Wow, it's absolutely, I feel like there's this whole new world that we're slowly learning about, but it's different to kind of the medical, doctor world, which we're obviously all very familiar with. But there's this whole new world to unlocking health and wellness that is really coming to light now, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think it's very important to combine the two. I think the world of science is phenomenal, and that can provide healthy frameworks. But there is this whole other avenue that is so undiscovered, and apparently we only use like a small percentage of our brain. So there is so much for us to learn and know that who knows? You know, it's like going into outer space. What's beyond?
Absolutely. And talk to me about kids as well, because, you know, a lot of parents are listening to this. I've got two young boys as well. Is there things that we should be mindful of how we are speaking to them to protect their future, so that the anxiety, as we know, happens to so many people, you know, comes from childhood, and it can be small things or it can be big things. So is there anything that we as parents need to do to help them?
I'm so glad that you asked that question. What a brilliant question. If you consider a child's mind, they're like little sponges. Have you noticed that when your children are, you know, with little children, they're like these little sponges and they absorb absolutely everything. What we say to them becomes their inner voice later in life, and it becomes an automatic thing. And so we do need to be considered about how we speak to our children. And words have power, actually. And I recently did a talk in London on this. Words have power. And can I give you an example?
Absolutely. I love examples.
Okay, good. Okay. Have you heard of the apple experiment?
No.
Okay, good. All right. So there's a really famous experiment called the apple experiment, where someone got an apple, and many people have done it since to test it out, and schools do it to test it out too. And you cut the apple in half, and you put one half of the apple into one jar labelled the good apple, and the other half of the apple into another jar labelled the bad apple. Now, every single day for 21 days, you and whoever else is in your house can go up to the good apple and say, "I love you. You're beautiful. You're doing so well, apple." You know, all of the positive words. And then you go to the negative apple and you go, "I hate you. You're revolting. I hope you rot." You know, all of the negative things. And I actually could see a change in your face then as I said that.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah, words have energy as well, you know, as well as meaning. So after 21 days, the good apple looked pretty fantastic. It was in great nick considering it was 21 days old and had been cut in half. The bad apple had completely rotted and was mouldy.
You're joking.
Absolutely not. Isn't that incredible?
Honestly.
Absolutely. Now,
Oh my goodness.
I'm not saying we're apples,
Yeah.
but we're organic matter.
Yeah.
And we absorb everything that comes at us. So a little child that lives in a house where the parent says, "Oh, darling, you fell off your bike," that's okay. How do you feel about, you know, trying again, because you can do anything with your incredible mind? Yeah. You know, that child's going to, you know, scrape its knee if it's fallen off and have a little cry and go, okay. Whereas a parent that goes, "Well, you're useless. Don't even bother."
Yeah.
You know, and then you can imagine, you can almost feel the child shut down a little bit. So we do need to be careful what we tell our children, and we need to be careful what we say to ourselves as well.
Yeah. Because it's that voice, isn't it?
It's that inner voice.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. And I think kids are just, like I said, they are sponges, and it's you know, we have to, it's our responsibility, even if we're not in a good mood or if we're stressed or we're anxious, that how we act influences or has an effect on our kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, as parents, we'll make mistakes.
Yeah.
We're human. But I think, and this is where guilt comes in, right? How many mums suffer guilt, have mum guilt?
Yeah.
There's that
Everybody.
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah.
And a lot of us, if you imagine a swimming pool and just floating around, you know, in your lie low on the swimming pool, and we can float around in guilt and just go, "I feel so guilty, I feel revolting, I feel awful, oh my gosh, that I just feel guilty." Well, there's no point in that. Actually, guilt can be a wonderful piece of communication if we utilize it properly.
Okay.
So what I do with guilt is I go, "Okay, I'm feeling guilty. Oh my gosh," and it doesn't feel good in that moment. Then I go, "Okay, let's go down a rabbit hole with that guilt." So I would go, "Okay, do I have a reason to feel guilty? Well, I've just yelled at my son because, you know, I asked him 3 times to put out the garbage and he didn't do it. So by the 3rd time, I lost it." This is just an example. Do I have a right to feel guilty about the way that I spoke to him? Well, actually, let's go down a further rabbit hole now. So I didn't like the way that I spoke to him, but what triggered me to speak to him like that? And it's not about saying he triggered me, it's what's within myself. So I might go, Well, I felt frustrated because I have to ask all the time and it's a constant problem that I have to deal with. And I've got the mental load and I'm thinking about this and that and everything else that needs to be organised in this house. I just need support and help. Okay, so then go a little bit further down that. So what do I need so I don't have to speak to him like that and he doesn't feel awful? So can you see how by just asking question after question after question and really trying to unpack and unravel the initial feeling of guilt, we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
So then I might go to my son and go, you know, darling, I absolutely should not have spoken to you like that. I truly apologise. What I need from you is to help me because I've got so many different things going on in my life at the moment and I'm trying to, you know, organise the kitchen and the dog and the garbage and, you know, do all the things. Would it be okay for you if, you know, I only had to ask the first or the second time and just knowing that, you know, anything beyond that might really trigger me and I don't want to be like that and you don't need that either. Would that be okay? So that's a nice way of then dealing with it.
So it's communication, right?
Absolutely.
I think that so much of life revolves around communication, and I think that, you know, if all of us worked harder on that communication, it will lead to better relationships with you know, with family, with, you know, partners, with friends, with work colleagues. It's all about communication, right?
You've hit the nail on the head.
It's true. Now, the last thing I wanted to ask is about. And I think you spoke to me about this a couple of years ago when we chatted about if whether it's a child or it could be a partner has got some specific issues when they go to sleep. If you either talk to them when they're asleep or you're playing something, that can have a profound effect. Tell me about that.
Oh my gosh, your memory's amazing.
Well, I loved it when you told me. I thought, God, that's incredible. I just thought how powerful it was, and also something that anyone can do.
Absolutely. So our unconscious mind is like a New York diner. It's open 24/7. So even when the kids are in the back of the car and they're asleep, whatever you're saying is they're absorbing, right? So a really beautiful tool to use is waiting till they're asleep. And from, I'd say up until the age of 11, you can go into their room and gently sit on their bed. And while they're sleeping, the first thing to say is, I love you. And so that's what the unconscious mind hears first. And then you might say something like, I'm really proud of you. I love that your confidence is just growing and growing. And so it might be some really beautiful, positive affirmation type words that are important to them and that will actually help them. It's definitely not about getting what you want as a parent. It's about what they need and what they want and having those discussions with them prior. So that's a really lovely thing to be able to do because then they're absorbing it whilst they're sleeping. So they're bypassing the conscious mind.
So only until 11? Does something change after 11?
Yeah, so the recommendation is from 11 and over, you might do it from their bedroom doorway because, you know, as we're heading into that tween period, they're sort of breaking away from the parents a little bit more. They're wanting their independence. And also we need to get their permission to do something like that as well. Yeah, right. At all times we must empower the children and remember boundaries. Yeah. And if a child wants help with that, absolutely great. Yeah. But if not, we have to respect their boundaries.
Yeah, amazing. It's absolutely fascinating. And I have to mention on that you have an amazing program called Little Fairies for kids, right?
Yes.
And it's do you want to tell us about that? Because it is amazing. And I know that a lot of parents will be listening to this going, how can I do more on this?
Yeah, so it's not so much a program. It's the Hip Little Fairy Tales are award-winning audiobooks that have the voices of actors and real-life sound effects, so they're completely mesmerising and immersive. but within the stories and within the challenges that the characters face is very specific language to help children reframe the negative to the positive, so that it plants the seeds for them to overcome certain fears, so they can maybe feel more courageous or to have confidence, or if they're feeling bullied, to learn how from the characters they can overcome that bullying and stand up for themselves or others.
Amazing.
And then they come with toolkits that really support the parents to help the children as well, and fun activities.
Oh, incredible. You do so much good work, and
thank you.
it's just fantastic, because there's not really anything else out there like that.
No.
And I think that, it's just been so great to talk to you today, just to learn more about that clinical hypnotherapy and what it can do for us, but what it can do for our kids as well.
Absolutely. It's been wonderful talking to you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.